Okay. Okay. We'll talk about frequency allocations and power output limits. There are some shared frequency bands where amateur radio operators share some or part of a band with other users from other services. And basically, we're secondary users, and other people are what are called primary. So, as you would expect, we have to defer to the primary user. If we're trying to use the same frequency as they are, they have priority. So we have to defer to the primary user. And again, you're not allowed to cause interference, which in this case would be willful with the primary user. It might be military. I don't know whether some other examples of where they're shared.
Anything private, I would imagine.
Yeah. So how are U.S. amateurs restricted in segments of bands where the amateur radio service is secondary? What did you say?
I said,
Well, let's see what it is. It's alpha. Like I said before, as a technician, you're limited. So you have full privileges above the 10-meter band. But below it, you're limited to 200 watts peak effective power. For VHF, UHF, microwave, you got the full 1500 watts.
there's this slide right there. That is the commercial to get a general license. Oh, I see its limitations.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're definitely restricted, but you know, repeaters, satellites, you can do all that. And you can do learn CW.
I consider it. I would consider it.
Except for some specific restrictions, what is the maximum peak envelope power output for technician class operators using frequencies above 30 megahertz? I would go along with Delta. What's the maximum peak envelope power output for technician class operators in their HF band segments? Very good. Okay, license classes. These determine basically where you can operate, what modes you can use, what power limitations you have. Basically, it's your privileges. So there are currently there's 3 classes of licenses. There's the technician, the general, and the amateur extra. There used to be a novice and an advanced, which are no longer issued. There are still people that hold advanced licenses and renew them. And I believe there's still people with novice licenses that kind of keep them for the fact that they got a novice license, I guess.
So I got a novice license 30 years ago in college when I worked on the radio station. It was like a little card that I thought was a real thing. And I was so proud of that. I'm like, check this out. And what did I know? I was a kid.
Well, you could have renewed it probably and kept it.
Should have.
The term for all the licenses is 10 years from the date it's effective, which is the date it'll show up in the FCC ULS database. After 10 years, you're no longer allowed to transmit or operate. They give you a 2-year grace period where all you have to do is renew your license, and now you have to pay the $35. If you go beyond the 2-year grace period, then your license expires and you have to take the technician exam, regardless of what your class was. If you were an extra and you expire, you have to go back and take the technician exam in order to renew your license, but then you'll get whatever privileges you had before. So you'd become an extra again if you did that.
That's interesting. So they'll let you take that technician and become an extra because you took the extra.
Because you were an extra.
Okay. At least you don't have to take off.
You know, it's
Any idea why that is? Why you only have to pick the technician?
no.
I mean, I've got a theory, but I
Okay.
don't know if it's completely true. My theory is that the technician is the exam gets heavy on regulatory stuff.
True.
So regulatory stuff changes, whereas everything else moves at the speed of technology. So
That could be.
the regulatory part's what will get you in trouble.
Yeah.
So they want to make sure that you're familiar with the rules still.
Well, I guess they also assume if you were like an extra or an advanced, that you probably knew enough that,
Which test costs more for technician?
actually as an upgrade is still free so far.
It's about the money. It's always about the money.
Yeah, it could be. Okay. Your license becomes effective as soon as it shows up in the FCC database, and you can go to fcc.gov and go down and find ULS, and then you can search for your FRN number, or your name, and if your license has been approved, it'll show up in their little table, and you'll see what your call sign is. You can only have one station operator license per person at any point in time in the US. Now, you could be licensed in Australia and have an Australian call sign at the same time, but you can only have one US license and call sign. And you actually get 2 licenses. You get a station licensee, which is your call sign for your station, wherever it is, whatever it is, and an operator license. They're both kind of the same, but you can delegate your control operator position to somebody else to operate your station. We'll get to that in a little bit. For which license classes are new licenses currently available from the FCC? Yep. They don't issue novice or technician plus, I guess, was a little for a period in time. Did that one require? There was one, I remember, that you didn't have to do code.
That was the tech one.
What is the normal term for an FCC issued amateur radio license? Charlie. How soon after passing the examination for your first amateur radio license may you transmit on the amateur radio bands?
I always questioned that.
I'm gonna go with Charlie.
Well, we'll go with Charlie. When you pass the exam, you will be given a CSCE, a Certificate of Successful Completion of Exam. And that's valid for a year. It shows that you have passed the exam, and if there was a mess up with records or something, it shows that you actually took it and passed it. And if you decided the next day or next week, well, that's probably too long. Let's say the next day, your license hasn't shown up in the database yet, but you decide that you want to take the general. If you show them the CSCE, that proves that you passed the technician and you could take the general test. That's, other than that, it's not, it's something you keep, but it's not worth a lot. Your license doesn't appear on the ARL website for any particular reason, other than if you sign up as a instructor or something like that, it may be there. Has nothing to do with getting your license. And the FCC will not mail you anything. They will contact you by email asking for your $35, and then they will process your application. Now, it's usually pretty quick. You usually get it the next day.
$5.
No. That's different. Yeah. You pay, and it depends on the VEC. If you take the exam with an ARRL VE group, it'll be $15 to take the exam, regardless of the class, whether it's tech, general, or extra.
I guess that's changed because for a while they were telling us, docs or, Laura.
Yeah.
Laurel,
Right. Laurel doesn't charge.
yeah, they don't charge, but the person had already gotten their, ULS or whatever it is, FRN. And showed their receipt that they had paid $35.
And so, some of the others, like I do the online with Central Alabama VEC, and they charge $5.
Yeah.
But none of them charge for an upgrade.
Yeah.
And the FCC doesn't charge you $35 for an upgrade. They do charge you $35 to apply for a vanity license.
And that starts your licensing period over again. Your 10 years starts again once they authorize you.
Vanity? Yeah, I think that's true. How soon after, oh, we did that. How many operator station license grants may be held by any one person?
One.
One. Okay, you don't get a paper license anymore. And when you go to the FCC site and your license shows up in their database, there will be a link where you can download a PDF copy of your official license, and it'll be watermarked with official license. You can print it out and have it laminated or whatever. I think technically you're supposed to keep a copy of that in your station in case the FCC people ever came by to review it, which is unlikely, but it's possible. So that's the only way to get a paper copy is you have to print it out yourself. What proves that the FCC has issued an operator/primary license grant?
Be cool if I knew.
Charlie. The CSCE just proves that you passed the exam. And if you don't pay the $35, your application won't get processed and you get to start over. Okay, call signs. When you pass the exam and you paid your money, you will get issued a call sign, and it comes out of a pool, and they vary by region. So if you're doing it here in Florida or maybe in Georgia, not sure how far 4 goes.
I think Kentucky, Tennessee,
kind of the southeast would be region or section 4. So you would get, and they're assigned sequentially. So I think now they're doing what? Are we doing K's or W's here?
When I got mine, when I was initially assigned, it was Kilo Quebec.
I think you're like KF, you know.
Yeah. So it would be something like KX4 ABC, perhaps. Okay. So it'll be the next sequential one out of the list. If you want a specific one, you can apply for what we call a vanity call sign. And you fill out a form and you prioritize your list of call signs that you want. They will give you the first one that's available. And you really need to go research the database, find out which ones are open.
Are there any restrictions on that? I mean, like if you wanted just a name or just numbers?
Oh, they have to be a 1x2, a 1x3, a 2x1, a 2x2, and a 2x3.
What does that mean?
Okay, that means that you'll have, and the 1x2 and the 2x1 are limited to extra. Only extras can get a 1x2 or a 2x1. And what those mean is the one or the 2 says a letter. The X is for the region, like 4 here, and then the 2 there would be 2 letters. So you could have W4XY would be a 1x2.
Yeah.
A 1x3 would be a W4, well, a W3 RDL, which is mine. That's a 1x3.
The first letters before the number, there is a limit on those.
Yeah.
It has to be something that's already in the scheme for the US.
Oh, and the only ones we use are A, K, N, and W in the United States, except for maybe some special purpose. But
But when I got my vanity call sign, what I was really hoping to get was S4 NTA. So when you look at S4 NTA, it looks like Santa. Like I look like.
Did you get it?
No, it's no call sign. So I had to settle for K4XLG because
Okay.
XLG is my adult size.
All right.
Easy to remember.
So the key is to remember that only extras get the 1x2 or the 2x1. That's kind of a bragging thing. But it's kind of hard to do your initials in a 1x2. Who may select a desired call sign under the vanity call sign rules? Anybody? Which of the following is a valid technician class call sign?
I doubt that.
You just told us that the 4 is only the 4 characters are only for, I guess that's for
Extras. I would say extra class license.
extra.
Yeah.
I thought that 4 was only for extras.
So you think B and C are extras?
I have no idea.
Well, is that a 1x2 or a 2x1?
For technician,
That's 2x1 and then 1x2.
So those are restricted to who?
Some
Extras?
I guess that is only for vanity signs.
almost,
No,
almost.
extra.
Only
Only extras can have a 1x2 or a 2x1.
We need a technician.
Now, today, the only way to get that I'm aware of is through a vanity. Okay. So only a extra could apply for a vanity call sign of a 1x2 or a 2x1. So the question was a valid technician class. So technician can't get KA1X or W1XX.
His answer in B and K.
Yeah, I was ruling out B
Yeah,
and
he was
C.
ruling out B
Okay.
and C, which.
Well,
also
I wasn't
rules out
sure
B.
that you understood it.
I thought I did, but I like to rather have these conversations to make sure.
Okay. So the answer is alpha. Okay, expiration. Like I mentioned before, you have to renew it before your 10 years is up, or you cannot operate. There's a 2-year grace period. If you let it expire after 12 years, you have to retake the technician exam that they call element 2. And you'll be issued whatever your highest class that you previously held, if you have proof. So sometimes it's good to hold on to that CSCE. In that case, you could prove that you had a extra or advanced or whatever. And I think if you had an advanced, I don't know if you get a general or an extra.
Go to an extra.
And during the grace period, you cannot transmit. What is the grace period for renewal if an amateur license expires? If your license has expired and is still within the 2-year grace period, may you continue to transmit on the amateur bands?
No.
You have to wait. There's a thing called a club license where if you have an amateur radio club, which has to consist of at least 4 people, you can get a call sign for that club, and somebody can be designated as the station licensee or trustee for that club license and equipment.
The officers can be non-traditional.
Yeah.
We have a local, club, KC2 UFO, Sky Watchers and Communicators. And they have a king and queen that changed at the solstice.
Yeah, they got a lot of
Some bizarre stuff.
kickback trying to do that, but there wasn't anything that said they had to define it as president and vice president. So they incorporated their club as a king and queen.
Nice.
Which of the following is a requirement for the issuance of a club station license grant?
Bravo.
Okay, good. Well, it can't be the first one because you don't have to be an extra to be the trustee. So it can't be, that means it can't be D, so. And there's no requirement that any amateur has to join the ARRL. It's a good thing to do, but it's not required.
Not sure that Bodie counted as a club member though.
Email. Since December 2020, the FCC changed their operation and they stopped doing paper licenses, and they went to doing everything by email. So one of the things you have to make sure of is that you have and maintain a valid email address for the FCC when you fill out your 605 when you apply for the exam, because that's how they communicate with you. And if they can't contact you, then they will revoke your license.
That brings up an interesting question. I have a couple of email addresses, but one of them, I can't figure out how to regulate what goes to spam and what doesn't. So I've just given up on it, and it's one I've had for probably 30 years. So it's probably gonna be phased out here soon because I get about 300 emails a day that's junk.
Well, you just need to make sure that if you change your email, you got to notify.
Well, I started a new email address with that call sign,
Right.
when I got the call sign, just for radio stuff.
Now, you're only likely to get an email from them when you know, apply for a license and, they send you an email wanting the money. And if you don't get that, then you don't get processed.
The junk mail stuff.
Well, they don't send out mass emails.
No,
I mean, if they send something, it's coming, it's between you and them and nobody else.
right.
Okay, so that lessens the chance that it would go to the spam box.
I've never gotten anything from the FCC except requests for money.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I didn't have to pay when I
I
did
already
it,
said that went to spam.
but you still. Well, I'm trying to think. Actually, they didn't send me anything. I just had to check every day in the database, see my license was there. Which of the following can result in revocation of the station license or suspension of the operator license?
Bravo.
Yeah.
Okay. There's some special operations if you're operating in international water. Okay. Any licensed amateur can operate if you're aboard a ship or vessel in international waters. I don't know if that also applies to aircraft over international water, but it may. And if the ship is documented or registered in the United States. So that's gonna leave out cruise ships.
I was just gonna say that.
Well, it says document,
Okay,
but cruise ships are.
documented but not registered.
Yeah.
Okay. From which of the following locations may an FCC licensed amateur station operate?
Delta.
Delta sounds good. Okay, so we talked about frequency and power limits. Avoid interfering with primary users. There's 1500 watts peak envelope power above 30 megahertz and 200 watts peak envelope power in the technician segment of the 10-meter band and CW in those lower bands. New licenses are only issued as technician general or amateur extra. Good for 10 years with a 2-year grace period. It's effective as soon as the call sign appears in the FCC database. Usually takes the next day after they take your money. Technicians can get a vanity call sign. Any licensed amateur can apply. But technician call signs are restricted to 1x3, 2x2, and 2x3s. 1x2, 2x1 are for extras only. And if your license goes past the 2-year grace period, you have to retake the Element 2 or technician license exam. A club license can be obtained if the club has a minimum of 4 members. If you fail to provide and maintain a correct email address where the FCC cannot contact you, they will revoke your license, or they can. I don't know how strict they are about actually doing it. But I do know if they email you for the money when you take the exam and you don't reply, they don't process your license. And international water operations or any vessel or craft registered or documented in the United States in international water.
What were you gonna say about the unions?
That has more to do with the email